Questions?
I don't necessarily have a question. The very first young lady who spoke tonight asked a question about the environmental lands that we are not allowed to touch at this point. And at the last meeting we held of this committee, I had great issue with us not having something in the minutes or something on the record that stated what the city's actual intention was. So I will say it again, only on behalf of me as one councillor. We are currently not allowed to develop that property. That is not our choice. That's what we're being told. If in future the rules changed, which allowed us to develop that property, it would be my intention to move that forward. And I think it's disingenuous to not say that. So at this point, we're not allowed to. If that changed in the future, and I don't know the likelihood of that ever happening, I think the city would look to develop the property.
Yes, Your Worship.
Just that comment from Councillor Baker, I think accurately reflects the will of council from our discussions.
Yep.
There's certainly been lots of pieces of this process, and speaking to Mr. McGill's comments and others, that if council could go back and do things differently, do them in a different way, no doubt that we would. I think there's a lot of surprised elected officials in the room when we were told we didn't have access to all the property we purchased. So I think that's something that we would want to do. How we handled the lady and the resident that was asked to move in 2 months is something I don't think anybody here would have preferred to handle the situation that way. Council had perhaps the biggest employment opportunity presented to us in certainly my history in 20 years on council, and we moved as quickly as we could to try and secure that. I don't know any elected person who wouldn't do that again in trying to secure the employment. Was it a nice situation? And in hindsight, was there a reason to get her out in 2 months if that's in fact what happened when 2 years later we're sitting here? Obviously, there wasn't. But when we talk about the need to do due diligence, and we've heard 2 or 3 public meetings tonight where there is that, if you're living in an enclosed city where you're surrounded on 3 sides by other territories and your southern border by an international waterway, there's only so much growth we can do. So it's infilling that you're looking for. So if you're currently living 150 meters from our major north-south artery and that land is vacant, I think you can assume over time, whether it's 10 years from now or 10 weeks from now, it's going to get developed. So if you're sitting in what, when you bought your property, was considered a country road, but there's, privately held land. This land a year ago or 2 years ago was all privately held, and it could have been sold to anybody who came along. The city is trying to have some aspect of control over what the development is going to be. And so when you're talking about how there's so many square footage of available land within the city of Brockville, you can't take the entire available package and consider it to be one lot. So we have many different pieces of property that can take a 20,000 square foot building. We have very few pieces of property that can take the large scale employer that everybody's trying to attract. And I'll make a very personal decision. I own a company that leases a 77,000 square foot building. If I want to make a further investment in the city and purchase a building or build a building, there are only so many pieces of property where I can do that. What the city is trying to do and what city council is trying to do is to put a piece of property together where large opportunities can be realized. And so there's only so many pieces of property where that can be accommodated. This was one that was identified, certainly isn't the only one, but it was the one that we thought met the needs that was being put in front of us. That issue went away. Now is there more time to make sure we get this as right as we can get it? Obviously, yes. There isn't a pressing need, but as the mayor has said many times before, when developers are coming through town, they don't want to sit through a 2-year process that you've sat through. They don't have time for that. They want to be able to take a piece of certified, ready to develop land and build their business. And that's what we're trying to accommodate is for those attempts.